Welcome back to the channel. I've got some new stories for you tonight. The first one I found on a forum about bad roommate experiences, posted by someone who sounded like they'd never trust a stranger in their home again. It's the kind of story that makes you question what's really behind a locked door, and how much someone's hiding when they smile too easily. Here's what they wrote. A few months back, I was stuck between apartments, bad timing, bad luck, and ended up staying at a guy's house for a few weeks. We weren't exactly close friends, more like friends of friends. I knew his name was Chris, that he worked some tech job from home, and that he had a decent-sized house out in the suburbs. He seemed chill when I first moved in. A little awkward maybe, but nothing that set off alarms. Except for the basement. From the start, he was weird about it. There was a big heavy door at the end of the main hallway, painted the same color as the walls, like he was trying to make it disappear. The first night I asked if the laundry was down there. He just smiled, way too quick, like he'd practiced it, and said, "Nah, all storage. Nothing interesting." He kept it locked. I noticed that immediately, with a thick deadbolt, scratches around the lock like it had been opened and relocked a lot. I didn't push it. Everyone's got their quirks, right? For the first couple of weeks, nothing happened. I went to work, came back, nodded at Chris, ate dinner in my room. We weren't exactly hanging out. Then one afternoon, Chris said he had to run into the city for work stuff, probably wouldn't be back until late. Cool, I figured. Free house. About an hour after he left, I was in the kitchen and heard this clunk somewhere near the hallway. Not loud, just deliberate. I followed the sound and found the basement door, unlocked, the bolt still sticking out, like it hadn't been turned properly. I hesitated. Everything in me said to leave it alone. But you know how it is. Once you're told not to look at something, it's the only thing you can think about. I told myself I'd just take a quick peek, just to see. The basement stairs were steep and narrow, the kind that feel like they're tilting backward as you go down. The air got colder with every step. It wasn't a finished basement, just bare concrete floors, exposed pipes, and rows of old shelving units against the far wall, all stacked with junk. Old lamps, broken chairs, cardboard boxes with faded labels. At first, nothing weird. Just normal hoarder-level storage. Then I noticed something behind the shelves. A little sliver of wall that didn't match the rest. Smoother, newer, a faint seam running vertically down it. It looked like a hidden door. I wasn't planning to open it, I swear I wasn't. But the door was already cracked open, just a hair. Curiosity won. I pulled it wider, just a little, and saw what was inside. A single Polaroid, taped eye level on the back wall. Under a bare bulb, buzzing faintly. The picture showed a woman, maybe late 20s, eyes wide, mouth open mid-scream. But what froze me wasn't her expression. It was the fact that she was sitting right there, right against that same concrete wall, arms behind her back like they were tied. And under the photo, written in shaky black marker, obedience. I stood there, staring at that Polaroid, feeling my mouth go dry. There was nothing else inside the hidden space, no furniture, no chains, no bloodstains, just that photo, taped up like a trophy. I kept trying to come up with rational explanations. Performance art, some edgy photography project, a really, really bad joke. But deep down, I knew none of those made sense. Not hidden like this. Not locked behind two doors. I was still standing there, frozen stupid, when I heard the front door open upstairs. Chris was home. I snapped back into myself hard. The heavy, familiar thud of his boots on the hardwood, keys jangling, dropped into the little dish by the door. I stepped back, easing the hidden panel shut as quietly as I could, heart hammering loud enough I was sure he could hear it from upstairs. His footsteps were slow, deliberate. No phone call, no TV clicking on, just walking. I killed the bare bulb inside the secret space, plunged it into darkness again. I moved fast, darting back toward the staircase, but before I could get to the bottom step, I heard his voice, casual, almost too casual, drifting down. "Hey, you down there?" My mouth was dry as sand. I called back, trying to sound normal. "Yeah, just looking for the laundry. Thought it was down here." Then came an awkward pause that took way too long. Then his voice again, closer this time. "You weren't supposed to go down there." He said it soft, not angry. Worse, almost disappointed. I heard the basement door creak as it opened wider. His boots thudded once on the top stair. I forced a laugh. "Sorry, man, I didn't touch anything. Just got curious when I saw the door open." Another long silence, the kind that makes your skin crawl. Then slowly, he started coming down the stairs. Every step felt like a hammer against my skull. I wanted to bolt. I wanted to charge past him and get out of the house. But I made myself stay still, hands jammed into my pockets so he wouldn't see them shaking. Chris reached the bottom and stood there, just looking at me. Not smiling, just staring. "You sure you didn't move anything?" he said finally. I nodded, swallowed hard. "No, man, I swear. I just peeked around." Another long moment. Then he gave this little chuckle, too sudden, too loud, and clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to make me stumble a step. "Shit, man. You scared me," he said. "Thought you found my little workshop." He winked when he said it, like it was supposed to be funny. But there was nothing funny in his eyes. Nothing at all. After that, Chris acted like nothing had happened. He led me back upstairs, joking about how messy the basement was, how he should have just boarded it up. I laughed along, because what else could I do? But every hair on the back of my neck was standing straight up. Dinner was awkward. He kept glancing at me over the table, little flickers of something behind his eyes, like he was trying to figure out how much I had seen. I barely ate. Made some excuse about being tired and headed for the guest room, locking the door behind me the second it clicked shut. I pushed a chair under the doorknob too, just in case. It was a stupid move to stay even one more night, but my brain couldn't catch up with itself. I just kept telling myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe that photo was old, a leftover from some abandoned project. Maybe Chris was just socially weird, not dangerous. I lay there in bed, fully clothed, staring at the door, listening to the house settle. For hours, it was just the ticking of the wall clock and the occasional distant hum of a car passing outside. Then around 2:30 a.m., I heard it. Soft at first. A careful, deliberate rattle of the doorknob. I sat up so fast my heart nearly exploded. The knob turned again, a little harder this time, like someone testing it. I stayed dead silent, not even breathing, one hand gripping my phone tight under the blanket. The chair wedged under the knob shifted slightly but held. Another rattle, then a long, low exhale. Right on the other side of the door, so close I could feel it in my bones. I stayed like that for what felt like hours, not moving, not blinking, every muscle screaming to run, but knowing there was nowhere to run to. Eventually, the footsteps retreated. Slow, reluctant, the soft creak of his door across the hall closing. I didn't sleep at all. At first light, I packed my stuff as quietly as I could, forced a casual smile when Chris came downstairs yawning and rubbing his face. "You heading out already?" he said, voice tight, like he already knew. "Yeah. Family stuff came up," I lied. "Thanks for letting me crash." He stood there watching me the whole time I loaded my bags into the car. Didn't help. Didn't wave goodbye. Just watched. I drove straight to a friend's place across town and crashed on their couch for 2 weeks, even though they only had one bathroom and a leaky roof. I never went back to Chris's house. I never called him again. But sometimes, when it's late, I think about that hidden Polaroid, about how carefully it was tucked away, about how easy it would be to make someone disappear if you had a place no one ever saw. And sometimes I wonder if Chris had already picked out a second photo spot, just waiting for the right moment. That's where that story ends. A locked door rattling in the dark, a host who watched too closely, and a secret in the basement that was never supposed to be found. It's the kind of thing that makes you wonder how well you ever really know the people you trust enough to live with. But while that one left a chill, the next story hits differently. And this time, it's not about who's lurking upstairs. It's about what's been sitting silently below your feet for years, just waiting to be uncovered. Here's the next one. When I moved in, the basement barely registered. The realtor gave it the usual, needs a little love speech, and I barely glanced at it before signing the papers. I figured I'd deal with it later, paint the walls, maybe seal the cracks, standard fixer-upper stuff. It wasn't until a few days after I settled in that I really took a good look down there. The first thing that struck me was how unfinished it felt compared to the rest of the house. No drywall, no ceiling, just exposed beams, concrete floor, and a few sad fluorescent lights humming like flies. Against one wall sat a heavy old workbench, built right into the foundation. It looked like it had been there forever, thick wood stained dark with age, and God knows what else. A few rusted tools still hung above it, pliers, a hand drill, clamps. At first I thought it was kind of cool, like vintage old man vibes. But then little things started nagging at me. There were deep scratches gouged into the concrete near the bench. Not cracks, actual marks, like something heavy had been dragged over and over in the same spots. I told myself it was probably just moving furniture, or some weird old project. Still, it stuck in my head. A few nights later, I went down there again to look for an outlet. I was thinking about setting up a laundry machine, and noticed something else. Along one wall, about waist height, there were 4 metal rings bolted directly into the concrete. They looked old, rusted stiff, but solid, like something you'd tie piping to, maybe. But they were placed weirdly, not in a straight line, not spaced evenly. Just random. I stood there for a long time staring at them, trying to come up with a normal reason they'd be there. Storage, maybe. Holding up heavy equipment. I didn't like the first idea that crossed my mind. I pushed it away hard. Still, once you see something like that, it's hard to unsee it. The basement felt colder after that, and not just from the draft. I tried not to obsess about it. I told myself every old house has weird quirks, stuff left over from decades of owners who did things differently. Maybe they were anchoring shelves or heavy tools. Maybe it meant nothing. But after I noticed the metal rings, it was like I couldn't not see other things too. A few days later, I was down there cleaning. I figured if I made the basement feel a little less depressing, maybe it wouldn't get under my skin so much. I started sweeping near the far corner, the one that always felt a little colder than the rest of the room. That's when I found the hatch. It wasn't hidden, exactly, just blended into the concrete. A square outline, maybe 3 feet wide, with a recessed metal handle. I never would have seen it if I wasn't pushing dust around with the broom. I stood there for a long time just looking at it. It didn't make sense. The inspector hadn't mentioned any kind of sub-basement. The plans I'd seen didn't show anything under the main basement. It felt wrong somehow, tucked away in the darkest part of the floor. Eventually, I forced myself to pull it open. It didn't lead to some creepy tunnel or anything like that. Just a shallow pit, maybe 3 feet deep. Inside was a thin, rotting mattress. No frame, no sheets. Just this sad, flattened thing, stained and stinking of mildew. I stared down at it, heart thudding against my ribs. It could have been storage. somebody tossing junk they didn't want to deal with. It could have been something else. The thought lodged in my brain and wouldn't let go. Why would you hide a mattress in a pit? Why cover it up like that? I closed the hatch, shoved a heavy box over it, and told myself I was being ridiculous. Old house, old junk, nothing more. But that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying it. The metal rings, the gouges, the mattress. Little things, all adding up to a shape I didn't want to look at too closely. I didn't sleep much. After that, I couldn't stay away from the basement. It was like the weirdness had sunk hooks into me. Even when I was upstairs, trying to live my life, part of my brain was always chewing on it. The rings, the scratches, the mattress. I told myself I was being stupid, that I needed to prove it to myself. Go down there in the daylight, look at everything with clear eyes, and find a normal explanation. So I did, day after day, little by little. I figured the workbench would be full of junk, nails, screws, old tools, but when I finally yanked the drawers open, most of them were empty, except the bottom one. It stuck when I pulled it. Inside was a battered black notebook, the kind you'd pick up for a few bucks at a gas station. The cover was creased and greasy at the edges. I flipped it open without thinking. The pages weren't filled with names or numbers. They were full of short descriptions, each one neat and careful, like little observational notes. Woman, early 20s, blonde hair, waits at bus stop near 3rd Street, Thursdays 7 p.m. Man, 40s, wears blue cap, jogs alone by the river after dark. Teen boy, red bike, cuts through back alley by hardware store daily. Page after page after page. Different people, different locations, no names, no explanations. It could have been anything. A writer collecting character ideas, an artist gathering material, a security guard keeping tabs on the neighborhood. But sitting there, in that damp, silent basement, the notebook felt like something else. Like planning. I closed it carefully, slid it back into the drawer, and shoved it shut hard enough to make the tools rattle on the wall. I told myself it didn't mean anything, but my hands kept shaking anyway. Another day, I found long scratches on the inside of the basement door, right near the bottom, like someone had been clawing at it from the other side. I had walked past that door 100 times without seeing them. Once you knew to look, they were impossible to miss. Every time I found something new, I tried harder to rationalize it. Old house, weird hobbies, overactive imagination. But the excuses started to feel thinner and thinner. And the worst part was, I couldn't be sure if the basement was getting colder or if it was just me. I stopped going down there after a while. Stopped even opening the door. Now, sometimes late at night, I think I hear noises from below. Faint scraping sounds, like something shifting against concrete. Maybe it's the house settling. Maybe it's mice. Maybe it's nothing at all. But once you start piecing things together in your head, even if the pieces don't quite fit, it's almost impossible to unbuild the picture. And if I'm being honest, I don't think I want to know what the full picture really is. Some things are better left buried under the floor. That's it for tonight. If these stories hit you, drop a comment and tell me. Did they get under your skin? Hit the like if you felt it, and subscribe for more. Turn on notifications too. The next one's coming. Until then, sleep light.